All right. Welcome to the remix, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started right now. We will be taking calls during this session this evening, so you may want to write this number down if you don't already have it, 646-652-2711. And so now we're going to go ahead and get into the show. Peace and greetings to you. Welcome, Bobby Hemmitt.
How you doing?
I am wonderful. How are you?
Yes. How's the remix doing?
The remix is wonderful. We're even better now that you have gifted us with your presence this evening. So we're going to go ahead and get straight into the show, Bobby, and I know you have so much that you want to give us this evening, and that will be received that way as well. I want to start out by asking you a question. For those of us out here or those out here who may not know, how did Bobby Hemmitt sort of come to be?
Well, most people will find out that if they get on a journey and they get to the point where they start enlightening people, that basically it was a movement that started probably from birth, although you wouldn't even know it and you wouldn't even have a clue until the appointed time. And I was like I said, I was a college-educated guy that was had a career in New York, Avenues of America, designing shoes. And so that was, and fortunately I was able to get to it. Fortunately I was able to get to it and be successful as starting. I'm just going to let that phone ring. You know, that's the sad part about being popular. You get a lot of calls. So anyway, I was on my way. I had already made the contacts and was already within the field. And what happened was I was studying this particular information like everybody else in the late 1980s when the resurgence happened. You know, we've had these different resurgence of information, the 1930s, you know, the 1960s, the early 70s. And in the black community, they emerge and then they submerge, or they rise and then they die. So the new one started in the late 80s, and so I was at the right place at the right time to get on the bandwagon when different scholars like Asa Hilliard, Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Ben, Francis Cress Wilson, and all of these cadre of scholars started coming back out. And at that particular time, I'm still over in the AU Center in Atlanta, at Clark Atlanta University.
Right.
And so when it hit, I was still within the student confines. You know, you know, so I spent about 8 years in college. You know, basically for room and board. You know, I figured out a way to take the college grants and to get 3 hots in a cot and can move about on the college circuit wherever I want to go. If I didn't have no money, I want to get to another city, I just go enroll in school, get in the dormitory, and then work my way through, you know, through the community. But anyway, this thing emerged, and this particular consciousness, I had already started studying it, and right after that I went to New York, right in the midst of that, and then one day I had the contract. I had a warehouse in Florida that they hooked me up with. They was getting ready to open up a store in Lenox Square Mall. I mean, it was real high-end shoes that time, like Bally and Cole Haan. So we was getting ready to do that. A guy by the name of Roger Bowman. I was working for him and his wife, Barbara Bowman. And so they was going to launch me as the new black in thing, in fashion.
Right.
And then one day I looked up and it was a year later, and all I was doing was studying and hadn't even come back to my contacts. I just walked right out of it. And didn't know what happened. It was like the spirit just took over. And about 4 years later, I asked the question, what happened? Why didn't I go through with my career? And the spirit world said we had to work around the clock to get you out of that, to do what you had to do. Do what your purpose was, your destiny. So there's always a spirit realm working towards certain things. And so basically they had to work to a particular point because I was getting ready to, I was turning 30. And in ancient tenets, you're only an adult at 30. It's called the Kim Hay rule. So you only become an adult at 30. And so I was turning 30, and lo and behold, they worked around the clock. And to make a long story short, I actually opened my first lecture. Actually, I opened for Steve Coakley during the time of the Rodney King uprising, or the so-called riots, or what, you know. So that Saturday after the Rodney King riots, I opened for him. And it wasn't trying to open for him. I just walked in the building. About a month earlier, I had broke down this Dogon mystery that I was researching. And I walked in the building. He was like, "No, brother, you got to come up here and get this to the people." So once I opened for him and the Atlanta community, conscious community saw it, it was like, you're doing a lecture on the 27th of June. That's 1992. And the rest is actually history. So the Spirit actually leads you in the direction. There was one guy that was a medical doctor, and he was a medical doctor for years. And then in the 1990s or the 1980s, like 1985, he just started writing these Gnostic books and these spiritual texts. And they was like, "Well, why did you leave your practice to do this type of work?" He said, "Oh, that was just biding my time until it was time for me to do what I was born to do." You see what I'm saying? So basically, we have these things that we're sent to do, and that's why you have to listen to your inner self and your inner heart. You see, and not listen to what society says, or not listen to what family says. Family is the worst entity when it comes to spiritual things. Family is one of the worst entities when it comes to spiritual paths, because some people will die trying to influence their knucklehead families. So if you can get past that, you can get your own path. And also, and I want to add this too. This is Friday the 13th. You said that?
Right.
13 is a lucky number in the African cosmology. It is the number of the star Sirius. And one of the reasons why I think that the Masonic aspect, I don't want to say European because it's not that, it's the Masonic aspect, the European Masonic aspect, they fear it because they know that the 13 in related to Sirius is the star of retribution. And 13 is also retribution. So 13 is also the Horus Heru Christ figure. You got 12 disciples, which is 12 signs of the zodiac, and the 13th man is Horus. So you have these 12 dimensions of the zodiac, which is 12 archetypal images in the human body, and the 13th one is the pineal gland. So 13 is actually the third eye, the pineal gland, which is called the evil eye. You see what I'm saying? To people who are not tuned in. You see what I'm saying? So 13 is also the number of the goddess Hecate, which is an Egyptian goddess called Hecate. Hecate is the goddess of the moon and sets over all witches. Witches come from the word Wicca, but it also comes witch, zitch, bitch, queen of the dog star. So the next time anybody calls you a bitch, you go, "That's right, queen of the dog star, Anubis." But the female dog called Anput. So Hecate is the number 13, the goddess of the witches, or the goddess of the crossroads, a female Elegba. But she's the goddess of the moon. So the moon is also the number 13, as well as the moon. The moon is also a number for melanin. See, the moon in the metaphysical thing is talking about melanin. Sama. Sama. Not only is Sama a plant, but Sama is also a king, and a person must have Sama in their blood system to become kings. So 13 is the moon, and the moon represents also Sama, which is also an ancient word in the Sanskrit text for melanin. You see, so 13 is our lucky number. Like when people go, people will go say, Mercury is in retrograde. Well, another word for Mercury in the alchemical text is Mercurus, which is melanin. So when Mercury is in retrograde, that's good for us. For melanin people, when Mercury is in retrograde, it's powerful. But because someone tells you different and you were trained that it is supposed to be all this this dysfunction, then you buy into that. Remember now, unconscious people that don't know nothing about Mercury being in retrograde, it doesn't affect them. It only affects you when you have the knowledge of it. But when you get the deeper knowledge, it's also talking about Mercurus, which is an alchemical term for melanin, the Sol nigger or the Sol niger,
right,
which is the black substance, negrito. You see, so yeah, so we are right in the middle of it right now with the whole 13 thing, because of the simple fact, hey, that's our number.
That's
you see,
it.
so.
That's all
right.
Wow, we're getting it kicked off, Bobby. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Now, I'm going to ask you one more question, and then what we're going to do is, you know that this show was also in the connection of Sister Ursa Mayat.
Right.
And it was a lot of her energy that she put into it to see that it happens. And we're going to be bringing her on in just a second so that she can chop it up with us as well.
One of my partners in crime,
With the day, Valentine's Day coming up, as you know, most of us know that day, February the 14th. Talk to us a little bit about that, and what should we as conscious people really perceive from this?
Okay, what you're going to have to do is, you must understand that the people who set up this country, although you heard about St. Valentine and they cut out his heart and these types of things, most of these things actually come from ancient mythology. And because the people who decided, they made one thing that was key. When they decided, when it came to holidays, that they would be based on ancient arcane knowledge and wisdom. Just like, like Christmas is the winter solstice, but it's also December the 25th was the birthday of the god Mithra, which was a form of Horus and Osiris, born in a cave. You see, born in a cave, and Mithra later on, that birthday was replaced with Jesus. You see what I'm saying, with the whole winter solstice.
Right.
You see, so it's a spiritual day. It's the birthday of Heru or Horus. So my point here is, if you understand the original meanings, believe me, they don't put holidays, you see, that's going to be detrimental to the functioning of their society. Those holidays, you best believe, are cardinal points of energy and things that is needed because they got it from the ancient fathers. Mainly, most of the American holidays was introduced by them when the Moors ruled Spain for 700 years. You see what I'm saying? Like Thanksgiving. There's a Thanksgiving ritual in most customs in most cultures. There's a Thanksgiving festival in the Dead Sea Scrolls. You see what I'm saying? So, but you get the whole turkey thing. So what they will do is they will take these ancient holidays, and which would be winter solstice, summer solstice, spring equinox, vernal equinox, fall equinox. You see what I'm saying? And these different cycles of the moon, the sun and the moon, and basically they will put a new mythology over it, or a new historical thing. So the Thanksgiving ritual becomes the pilgrims with the turkey, but it existed long before that. You see, so therefore you always try to look for the esoteric meaning of those particular days. Now, because Valentine's Day is dealing with the heart and dealing with the love and dealing with those types of things, then we know that it has something to do with the heart chakra.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And the ancient goddess in the African arcane mystery, Urzuli. Urzuli is the god with her symbol is the heart-shaped goddess.
Right.
But Urzuli is ancient Aphrodite in what is which is later on Greece, but originally Phoenician. Aphrodite. And Aphrodite is celebrated as Het Heru in Egypt. So Het Heru is probably the oldest origin of Aphrodite, Urzuli, Ishtar, Anana. The goddess Lakshmi is the goddess of love. You see what I'm saying? In India.
Right.
So what you do is you redirect that energy back to its arcane or ancient